Okay, welcome
Yeah,
everybody to the awakening. We have Peter, the astrologer. Okay.
um, so I do the sidereal zodiac, and I'm looking right now at the what's going on in the sky right now. Um, and we have, according to the sidereal zodiac, we have three retrograde planets. Saturn is retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. Um, and Saturn's in this Vedic star, this nakshatra, this part of the sky that's called Shatabichak. Shatabichak is referred to the 100 healers. So when Saturn's going retrograde, there may be something that is from the past that we kind of need to heal also as well. And one of the best ways I've found with all these retrograde planets, especially with Mercury and Venus and Saturn, is that don't do anything, just reflect right now. And the what I believe, what I see in the charts is that the human condition is always wanting to is wanting to do something. It's like to take action. Well, what if the planets are referred to as deities, as gods in a lot of ways, and heavenly bodies, so what do we do when the planets are retrograde? That sometimes the best thing we could do is nothing at all in a lot of areas in life where, especially this Mercury retrograde period. So Saturn is retrograde. Saturn is a very important planet because it takes the longest to transit through each of the signs. And so when Saturn's retrograde, there's kind of this unfinished business in this nakshatra called Shatabichak regarding looking back at our healing work, or to actually have the discipline to create some type of structure in our healing and our progress with that. And when I look at Mercury represents the nervous system, and Mercury's retrograde for a couple more weeks here, we can actually see the position of Mercury right here. If we go like 1 week, we could see how the planets actually shift in the different signs in accordance with their positions. Here's 1 week, 2 weeks, and let's see. So we can actually see on September 10th, and then Mercury, if you look at Mercury right here, goes direct. We have the new moon, and then shortly thereafter, on the September 16th, Mercury goes direct. One thing that I want to suggest to people during this Mercury period, this Mercury retrograde period, is Mercury represents the nervous system of the body as well. Let me go back to today, 25th, 26th, 27th. And also when we look at Saturn, there's something about like going back of time, forgiving something, Saturn is the karmic taskmaster, and sometimes if we realize, wow, did I really forgive even myself too as well? So this is kind of important. But where I'm getting at is there in Ayurvedic medicine, there's a practice where we take oils and we rub the oils. A lot of times the oils look like this. It's vata oils, and whatever our condition is, and rub it on the arms, on the inside of the arms, on the outside of the arms. And this is really good for the planet Mercury, because if Mercury represents the nervous system and is going retrograde, this practice is called abhyanga in
Is there a type
where,
of oil you use, Peter?
pardon me?
Is there a type of oil that you use?
Yeah, I would suggest sesame oil, but not the roasted type of sesame oil that you find at the grocery store. This has to be really clean sesame oil that is uh and we have to be careful about it also as well if we are actually fighting a cold or any type of infection or anything like that. Like we do it typically when we're pretty healthy, because it can take a lot of energy from us also as well.
Oh,
So yeah, so Abhyangar is a practice of oils. And since Mercury's retrograde and Saturn's retrograde, and it's definitely about kind of our self-healing in a lot of ways right now, and our self-healing of the nervous system as well. That a lot of times we can find an Ayurvedic center where we live, and I'm sure there's probably at least in Perth 50 to 100 Ayurvedic practitioners or doctors, and whether they import the oils from India or they make the blends themselves. And really what's required of that is that they cook this medicine in the oils, and whether it's vata oils or some type of oil that they use, it's like a meditation practice where we take these oils. Like I have a vata deranged oil because and there's certain heating elements in this oil. So vata is like when somebody's coming down with a cold and their body just kind of feels depleted and such. Well, we take the oils and we just heat up the oils in our hands. Typically, it should be nice hot oils. And in India, they pour this oil all over the head, all over the in the nose and the ears and on the chest and every single centimeter of the body. And they
oh,
rub this oil in the body.
right.
And this adds a really nurturing, warming effect, but it's actually really good for Mercury retrograde.
Mm,
Um, yeah, so this is, and actually I would say definitely for, even Venus is retrograde, and the aspect of like self-love
mm,
can be important. And, when we're doing these oils on the body, this can be very powerful for us as well. Uh, and some people have depending upon their Ayurvedic constitution that they have. Maybe they have a pitta imbalance. So they're going to want to use like a pitta oil. I think most of the people right now, they would have a imbalance of a vata energy right now, or the change in seasons that can sometimes cause colds and flus and such. So when we use these oils, and Mercury represents the nervous system, but also the skin of the body as well.
wow.
And so when we take the oils and we rub it in the hands, in the fingers and the arms, this is one of the greatest remedies for Mercury retrograde as well.
Mm,
Um, and I think that like in a lot of the readings that I do, instead of so much talking about the problem with things, I try to focus more on the solution and the remedies, right?
mm,
And and Mars is in this kind of this tricky part of the sky. It's in Virgo. Um, Virgo is actually ruled by Mercury as well. So there's a connection between Mercury and Mars right now, what's called the drishti, because where Mars is in Virgo, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So one thing that I say that I've noticed about Mars is the best remedy that we can do is strengthen our shoulders. And I don't care how young you are, how old you are, everybody can do it, where we take some weights and we try to strengthen our shoulders, because Mars represents the shoulders. So if we can strengthen our shoulders also as well, this can be of great benefit to us as well. Um,
Any
I'm not
reason?
trying to tell anybody, pardon me?
Any reason why the shoulders? Is it because we're carrying the
Uh,
burden?
yeah, because like a warrior going into the battle, we have the strength. Mars is the warrior, and so when we have the strength of the shoulders of the body, this is the body part that represents the planet Mars. And so this means that if we strengthen our shoulders, we can live forever. We can outcome any problems that come with us, including our health problems, any fears, future fears of the world, or anything that's going on also as well in our own life. So these are really practical remedies that are very helpful. So what it means is go to the gym and work out the shoulders. The shoulders aren't the easiest muscle to try to figure out how to work out. but we can also do some yoga poses and stretching from the shoulders, and massaging the shoulders also as well can be good. But sometimes lifting weights, or any way that we can strengthen the shoulders, will be good. So if we do this, not only strengthening the shoulders, but also um, finding either some good quality sesame oil, or find an Ayurvedic doctor or an Ayurvedic center that, or you can actually import. You can probably, I don't know if you use Amazon there in Australia. I'm in Bali now.
Yeah.
But you can also probably order Ayurvedic Vata, VATA oils. And we can see that a lot of them can be from India, and they're really good quality oil because they cook for many hours the specific herbs that are good, whether they're heating herbs, warming herbs, inside the actual oil, right?
Mm.
And it's something that we practice. Also, a really good day to do this is on a Saturday as well, but pretty much any day. I mean, if you are to use these Vata oils, like any health problems I believe that you have, whether it's a cold, whether it's anxiety, whether it's fears about the future, about, oh my God, where are we?
Mm.
um, that if we can strengthen the nervous system also as well by using these oils, and again, we just take these oils and we just rub for sometimes 20 minutes each arm, and
Wow.
we're going to feel so good afterwards. We're going to, bringing this oil into the body. And of course, we want to be careful if we do it when we're sick, because it can actually deplete us a little bit too as well, like if we're fighting a cold or something, because the body needs all the strength that we can have. Now, in some cases we can use the Ayurvedic oils, but typically it's traditional in practice that if we're fighting a cold or we have phlegm, or because I know in Bali, probably half the country in the last, or half of Bali had this sort of like respiratory thing over the last few weeks, and everybody that I knew got it, where they were like coughing up things. And what's interesting in August is always the month where people get colds, and it's actually the time where a lot of the elderly people die in Bali. So they have a lot of uh, 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 services, and these, they're not really funerals, they're like cremation ceremonies. They call them ceremonies. When people actually die, they have like a celebration of it instead of a sorrow. So we have to kind of take care of ourselves, like during in August, at least here in Indonesia and in Bali. And so, if we look at the Vedic remedies for these planets too as well, we can actually help us. And when we see the planets are retrograde, um, that when Mercury's retrograde, it's the best time in the world to research things, maybe on healing, like what is the best herbs for me, or maybe I'll research Abhyanga, like what is this self-massage thing where I'm using these sesame oils that are very good for my body and good for my bones and my nervous system as well, to reconsider things in the last 6 months. What is it that I need to do? Maybe I should reconsider this book deal, or whatever these remedies are that are leading up to this moment. Um, so does anybody have any question? I'm looking at the planets, I'm looking at the sky, right upon this meeting at 10 a.m. here in Perth, Australia. And this is called the Muhurta. This means that all questions can be answered basically um, in Muhurta astrology by pulling up the actual chart of the actual meeting, or that talks about basically what's going on in the sky right at this time that the meeting started. So it's like it said that, like with Alexander the Great and a lot of warriors and such from the past, they began the battle right at the perfect Muhurta, and that's why they won. They began the treatment of the specific healing modality, and that's why they won. They began the relationship or the marriage at the ultimate timing. Therefore, the relationship is a great success. Everything is based upon also on the timing of things. But sometimes if we don't have an astrologer in the calculator, how do we actually do that?
Mm,
And one of my suggestions is that, I believe that we have a spiritual clock that through our meditations, through also the ability to not feel that we're actually being forced to do something at the right time,
mm,
to not feel like we're actually being forced to make a decision because the decision's no. If we feel pressure or if we do things out of fear, it's like, oh my God, I got to do this. Otherwise, I need to marry this person. Otherwise, somebody else will marry them. Or um, we I need to fight the battle, otherwise I could lose, or the fear that comes up, that we have to find the equanimity in the body where we come to this place of peacefulness and meditation, and we know that this is the perfect time to begin the journey. I remember like there's a movie, I think it's called 7 Years in Tibet, with Brad Pitt, and we could see the Dalai Lama when he tries to escape from Tibet, and he knows that if he stays, that the Chinese are going to kill him. So he goes into these meditations, and he doesn't actually leave until he sees this perfect clearing where he sees himself through this journey, and he's able to escape Tibet, and as dressing up as a peasant and escaping um, through the trails that led to India, northern India. So everything is about the timing of things.
mm.
And, if we don't have an astrologer, I would suggest if it's a really important date that we need to look at, we want to look at maybe the astrology of it. Like, when is the best time to release my book, to launch my book? So
Well,
anyways, yes,
I've got a
questions?
question there. I've got a question there, Peter. You said about Mercury in the nervous system. Is that affecting a lot of people in the nervous system? Nervous and panicky and affecting their
Uh,
minds and that kind of thing?
yeah, I think so. And also that in the next couple months that we're going through a parliament of changes. Like, we are going through the biggest changes that we have in 20 years, because the nodes are changing signs. The nodes, Rahu and Ketu, you've heard me talk about Rahu and Ketu a lot in the past, the North Node and the South Node. Um, but the nodes are always moving retrograde. And in the next couple months, the nodes are going through what's called a Gandanta point, where we know that there's changes happening. And like a dog who the family has the family dog and they're moving to a new home, the
Mm,
dog's freaking out. It gets hives, it starts getting nervous, and dog feels something's going on. And I think a lot of us can feel that energy also as well. And that's why I think that when Mercury's retrograde during this time period, I think a lot of it is due to a lot of changes that are happening that are leaving a lot of us with some uncertainty and a bad taste in our mouth to see, the last what happened in the last cycles of of changes, how we blame it on a virus, or whatever happens, that it changes and affects the body and the mind and the spirit. And that's why, believe it or not, even in these oils, if anybody's joining right now, I was talking about Mercury retrograde and how I'm suggesting more like using a lot of the remedies. And one of the remedies that I'm suggesting is using like Abhyangar. Abhyangar is a practice in Ayurveda. It's a self-massage practice. We get
mm,
sesame oil, and a lot of times they blend it with specific herbs, and you get the oil and you try to put it on your body as hot as possible. Try not to do it if you're fighting a cold infection, but when you get better, or you feel a window where you're getting better, Mercury represents the nervous system. And yes, to answer your question, this is probably what a lot of people are kind of feeling. Now, the nervous system is good because the nervous system keeps us on our toes to take action, so it's important. Without a nervous system, we're in trouble. Um, because the nervous system actually is, uh, some people can look at it as more of a negative thing. It's like, oh, it's affecting my nervous system. But what if the nervous system, the nerves of the body, actually serve as an important function of the body, as a fight and flight response, as a way um, to bring our intelligence, because Mercury's the planet of intelligence. It also rules the nervous system as well.
mm,
And when we spin out when we're thinking too much or the nervous system is off. It's hard to think because we're in the fight or flight response mode, in a lot of ways. And therefore, what do? Well, bust down with the oils. And sometimes they have like they put bromine, which is for mental clarity of the mind. Bromine is an Ayurvedic herb that's similarly related to almost like chamomile tea, but a high strength dose of chamomile tea, which helps to really relax the body in a lot of ways. So when we take the bromine or the infused oils, a lot of times an Ayurvedic doctor will say, oh, what's your problem? You think too much. Well, let's get this Ayurvedic oil and we put a ton of bromine in it, and warm, hot bromine oil that's going to help pacify the nervous system of the body. Therefore, um, it's kind of sad but true in a lot of ways. In the Ayurveda, even in India, at one time they used Hindu astrology. They would look at the person's chart here, and they would say, oh, you're going into a Mercury Mahadasha period maybe, and your Mercury's retrograde. And so we want to strengthen the nervous system of the body, So Ayurveda actually used Hindu astrology, and it's probably half of the Ayurvedic doctors only use it today, which in fact it's a sister science, Hindu astrology, because it gave us this blueprint or this karmic tool to help us understand things like, was the person born with a Mercury retrograde, or what is the planetary period that they're in. Like if I look at the dasha periods right here, we could see that even though we're starting in the Venus, this is like if somebody was born today, basically. But Venus represents the organs of elimination, the sexual organs. The sun represents matters of the soul. Venus can represent massage. Also, the sun can represent homeopathic medicine. The moon is meditation, mantra, and the mind. And the moon is also, when this person's 25 years old, they may want to study psychology, hypnotherapy, or use the mind can kind of take over the body during this time. Mars at 35 is exercise, is movement. Now this happens, like a person could be born in the Mars dasha period, and it's like, what's wrong with my child? And it's like, oh my God, you got to get the child to run. He's in the Mars dasha period. Get him to be an athlete, but he's only 4. Well, yes, we need to get him to move the circulation, because Mars represents the blood and the circulation. So each one of these planetary periods also represents the healing modality. So some people could be in their Jupiter period, and Jupiter, depending upon how it's placed, can actually deal with sound healing work, but also wisdom that helps us with our health, helping, and optimism and hope, depending upon how Jupiter's placed in the natal chart. And Saturn, of course, is fasting, cleansing, detoxing, restrainment, discipline, routine, these type of things, which is really good. Saturn's retrograde. And then Mercury represents as I was explaining, we're talking about Mercury retrograde right now, the nervous system, the teeth, the skin. If Mercury's in a bad position, this person could have a nervous tics, or this person could have nervous disorders, or they could have skin problems and such, and also that I find that, like, if Mercury, one of the best remedies also for Mercury is to go into a dentist and have your teeth cleaned as well. I know this sounds kind of funny, but and the person could find out, wow, I had an infection in my gums or something, and that's what was causing this problem maybe that I had. I'm just kind of giving a general view of assuming things. K2 is typically the planet when a person goes into the cycle of psychic disturbances, of energy around us that's not fitting, that sets us off on our path and can bring in entities in our life and our body. So we clear with this K2 energy through powerful sadhana, meditation practices. I'm just kind of generally speaking about how the dasha systems are related to the health problems in a person's life. And since Mercury, we're looking at the chart today, Mercury's retrograde, Venus is retrograde, and Saturn are retrograde. So there may be a connection with the looking at different ways to do things, and that's why this conversation today, I'm saying, wow, again, if we do find these oils specifically to a specific remedy, that we heat up these oils, we use these ancient traditions to help with the nervous system. This may be really important for us during this time period in our life. In this time period to help with to cope with the stress, and then Grace, I'm specifically answering just your question about the energy that you're feeling right now. Is it this nervous energy that's coming from us where there's this uncertainty, or is this the Mercury retrograde is taxing our nervous system in these ways?
I know someone's going through it, Peter, and just like it's just confirming what you're saying, because what they go through is exactly what you're describing right now. So it just, for me, it just allows me to like, oh, okay, that's what it is, and it's all right. It's just got right through the whole process.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that the nervous system can lead into other things also as well, because when we have a weak nervous system, it can be the entry point of other challenges of of other viruses or other getting a cold, and then the cold can lead into malnutrition or dehydration, so it kind of sets off a chain reaction here. So what I would say by looking at the charts, because I'm just in it in this conversation just to be of service here, and I want to say that by looking at this chart today, when we started this meeting, I can see maybe some of the best things that we can do during this time period, and to have the north node of the moon in the ascendant is whatever your problems or your worries are, any challenges that you're having with your health, with your nervous system, with anything, is that with all the planets retrograde, there isn't a lot that we can do. So maybe the best thing is to do nothing at all. So don't feel pressured. Don't pressure yourself to feeling like you need to change something, when in fact, take a break. The next couple of months are going to be powerful, yet intense, yet transformative. And right now is, I believe, just an excellent time period to just when you don't make a decision at all, you're still making a decision, and even with all these retrograde planets, it's really interesting because I've been so busy doing readings, at least a reading or two a day for the last 22 years. And this is like the first time in like a week where I haven't had any readings this week. And part of my mind goes like, oh my God, maybe nobody loves me anymore. Maybe I'm losing maybe I'm supposed to be doing something else. But in fact, it's like, oh my God, take this time as an opportunity to just call it off and just say, oh my God, let's get some of those damn oils. Let's contact an Ayurvedic center, get them on Amazon, some Vata deranged oil, or if you need to find out if you have a nervous system challenge, if you feel lethargic, if you're just getting over a cold, if you've been doing fasting or anything like that, there's a chance that you could have a deranged Vata in the body, which is, I think, quite common now, especially when it's cold out. So we want to get these hot oils and put them on our body and spend an hour a day, every day, rubbing it into the body. And whatever problems we have, let God sort it out. And in a couple of weeks, when Mercury goes direct, and 3 months when Saturn, 2.5 months when Saturn goes direct, and when the planets start going direct, then we'll understand why this happened. And we're like, wow, that was the best thing I ever could have done to take time off,
That's great. I'm not sure if you actually answered these two questions, Peter. We've got a question from Miko and Barbara on the chat.
Yeah, hi. What can I do to strengthen teeth? I had one chipped recently and two others were chipped as well. Well, Mercury represents more of the hygiene of the teeth, so going in to get your teeth cleaned is kind of a good idea right now, and then we can find out, oh, like you have a cavity or you have infection in the gum or something like that. So I don't really know about the chipped teeth, but I imagine that, God has interesting ways of bringing things to the table. So maybe you go to get your teeth checked out because they're chipped, and then you find out, well, let's get them cleaned and find out, do I have any problems with the teeth as well, you know? Um, so the other question is, my constitution is Vata. Do you recommend using sesame oil every day, not just when Mercury's retrograde? I actually think that sometimes I even forget to do it. This Vata energy, deranged Vata, is really prevailing a lot of times right now, what's happening in the world right now, with uncertainty. And I'm not saying that everybody has this problem, but you can get the Abiango oil or these sesame oil, basically, that typically they cook the herbs in it. So whatever your Ayurvedic constitution of, if you're worrying too much or thinking, they may put bromine in it, or they may put some of the oils even have like ashwagandha, which is really good for energy, but they actually put it in the oils. Um, and it can actually remove toxins from the body as well. So sometimes you can even have a little bit of a detox effect, you know. So to do it every day, well, I would, you know, I don't want to say to be an extremist, but I would say that, you know, your life will rock if you can find what is the problem and find a good oil. And it's really affordable. I mean, I think I spent like $2 on this bottle that has just lasted me already like about 10 days. I had a guy came down with that kind of that viral chest inflammation that like half of Bali had like over this last month. And so my vata was quite deranged. So what did I do? I went to the gym and I started working on my shoulders and for Mars, and I started using this oil, the Abiango oil, every single day. And and I feel people have come up to me, they're all, you look healthier than I've ever seen you in your life. Yes, well, I just did a 20-day water fast, where I lost 20 pounds as well. And that can take a lot out of the system. And my system is kind of recalibrating in a lot of ways. So, you know, to answer this in a different way, when we go through these healing transformations in our life, I honestly feel that there's a guard at the gate of the next level of where you need to go, the next spiritual level, the next dimension, portal you go into. And that guard is testing you sometimes, like making sure that you're good to get to that next level, whether it's perfect health or whether it's clarity or whether it's a new area in the career, whatever it is that you're working on. It's this next spiritual evolution of yourself will always not be easy sometimes, you know, and therefore, you know, because of the test or the processes that we must go through, or the purification that we must go through also as well. So I strongly feel that, you know, we also must do emotionally and physical and energetic body, including the nervous system as well, which this is Mercury retrograde period, and Mercury's retrograde right now. And according to the chart, interesting enough, Mercury's Mercury's in this 11th house with the sun, and the 11th house has to do with like with the sun here with Mercury retrograde. Uttara Fanguni is the marriage mansion, where Mercury's placed right now, where it's retrograde, and and this is with Mercury in Uttara Fanguni in the 11th house. There's a connection between your friends right now. So meeting new friends, meeting people with ideas, befriending your Ayurvedic doctor, befriending other people who are maybe writing reports on, you know, the different ways to strengthen the nervous system, so we can make better, so we can have the patience, but we can also make better choices in the decisions that we make. Yeah, so this is all sounds kind of mental in a lot of ways, just saying this in a lot of ways, but try it, you may like it. So
That's great. And got a question from Suzanne too. What about eyes? so many people wear glasses or have eye problems. If our bodies rejuvenate so readily, why the problem with eyes?
Oh, with eyes, you say?
Yeah.
Well, eyes are seen through the position of the sun. And interestingly enough, I looked today, and I could see that the sun is conjoined with Mercury. And so the nervous system is also related to the eyes as well. And this is what I've seen people with cataracts, people have eye problems. It's also kind of stigmatism, or the different eye challenges, that it's also related to the nervous system of the body. From what I can see in the chart, I think that there could be different interpretations of this. But believe it or not, in Ayurvedic medicine, there are actually these eye drops that they use. I actually have some around here. I try to hide them from myself because they're super painful. You put a drop in there, and sometimes it can hurt. It feels like stinging needles in your eyes for about an hour. But then afterwards, like, your eyes feel clear. It like gets rid of the coating, negative coating on the eyes or something. So, just to answer your question, well, what about eyes? Well, what about your eyes? Well, how are your eyes? The sign of Leo can represent also the placement of the eyes. Like, if a person has difficult eyesight or difficult vision, a lot of times we can actually see it in the chart if the person actually wears glasses. I remember in my own experience, like when I started having to use eyeglasses, I asked my older brother, who was 6 years older than me, who was wearing eyeglasses, what do I do? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm needing to wear eyeglasses. He's right about 40 years old, I think, or 35 or something. And he says, Peter, he's all, try as hard as you can not to wear glasses for the longest time you can, or try to not be dependent on the glasses also as well.
Mm.
So, if there was a miracle cure for the eyes and such, I think it would actually be related to the nervous system also as well. So in fact, if you do have eye challenges, well, if we strengthen the general overall nervous system, maybe through using these specific oils for the rest of the body, maybe this will actually help with the nervous system and contribute to better eye vision or better eyesight. And so remember that inflammation probably there's only one real disease, and that is inflammation. And if the eyesight has bad vision, maybe now's a great time for communication in hidden ways, like vision of eyesight, maybe looking at Ayurveda or looking at other healing tools that'll be able to prolong our vision. And from what I see in the chart, it's all related to past life karma, forgiveness on a spiritual level, but then also on a practical level of strengthening the nervous system as well.
Mm.
And I'm not an eye doctor, and I think that even the eye doctors don't even know in a lot of ways. And this is a time period where we question the reality of the medical system altogether. And one of the reasons is because I think things are changing so much. Like right now, the energy center, the Merkaba, is spinning so fast because this is the month right now that we're going through that has the highest solar flares, that has usually out of the whole year the highest Schumann resonance or solar flares. I won't get too deep into that conversation because we'll be here for another 100 years. Yeah, so the nervous system is what I see. And if I had to look at this chart to say, what is the problem with the eyes? According to this Muhurta of today, it would be directly related to the nervous system. That the nervous system, believe it or not, from what I see, can cause inflammation that can cause blurry vision in the eyes also as well. So, just to kind of, I know that Steve's wanting to get on, just to kind of wrap things up, if we can balance the influence of the planets by, number one, strengthening Mars, who's in this part of the sky that's ruled by Mercury and Virgo, strengthening our shoulders, getting to the gym, start working out, getting the circulation in the body moving. With the Mercury retrograde, Abhyanga oils. Find, even if you can't find the oils, find sesame oil. Make your own if you have to. But typically the Ayurvedic oils, they cook under heat, under pressure for many, many hours, and then rubbing the inside of the arms. Like a lot of times I see people, like if I do a reading, say for instance, and my client's freaking out because they're going through a nervous twitch, or oh my God, my wife wants a divorce and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I say, do you have any sesame oil? Quick, find some sesame oil. Okay. Put it in a little pot, heat it up a little bit, not too hot, but just warm it up a little bit. Okay, get the oil, start rubbing your arms. And about 4 minutes later, I can start talking to them. And I won't waste their money because they're so wrapped up in their health problem that they forget they won't get any benefit out of the reading at all, you know? So if you know anybody in your life that is going through nervous problems or freaking out for some reason, unknown or known, if you can't look at their chart and see what it is, then you can get them to put this sesame oil on the arms, especially during this time period that Mercury's retrograde. And who knows, it'll probably even help their vision as well.
That's good. As long as
So
they don't have a cold at the moment.
typically you're not supposed to do Abhyangar if you're fighting like cold, because you need all the energy in the body. But I've heard other people looking at different ways of doing that. So this is a time period right now with Mercury retrograde. It's in the 11th house, according to this chart, this Maherta that I see, is that it's time to start connecting with the friends in high places, you know, that are connected with health routines, that are connected with ways to better your nervous system, that are maybe connected to developing kind of these marriage and partnerships with you know, and I like befriend your Ayurvedic doctor, befriend your the company that's manufacturing sesame oil, or the farm, or the health food store that's, you know, I bet you anything, there's probably 10 health food stores that have this oil, the sesame oil that's used for Ayurvedic vata derangement. And it's like, hey man, let's all get together and have an oil party, you know. It's like, let's change the oil. Let's rub oil on our bodies and our arms and our nose and our ears and our oh, you know, and of course, you know, on the top of the head, hot oil. It's like, oh my God,
Now
game changer.
that sounds like a good workshop weekend, Peter.
I just want to like get like, I wish I could fly right now to where everybody is right now, just like pour hot oil on top of everybody and rub it all over everybody.
Yeah, that's good. Come over. It's only 3.5 hours flight, Peter.
Yeah, and also say that, you know, from the Vedic astrology perspective of Venus, massage is one of the best remedies because it connects us to ourselves. So can you imagine Venus retrograde? It's like, oh God, I don't feel enough love in my life. Well, God, man, get out some oil and start rubbing yourself. It's like, oh, I love myself. I love myself. Well, I'm not trying to cross any boundaries or anything. I don't love myself that much, but you know, we rub our, you know, they say that the jaws here are connecting to the ancestors, our past lives here. And it's like, if we push really, really hard, sometimes there with hot Ayurvedic oils, we can feel releasing kind of some ancestral codes, like of the old ancestry stuff. Usually people have really tight jaws. They're dealing with like ancestry issues. So we can notice in the different parts of the body, it's like, oh God, why are my shoulders so tight? Or, oh, my neck is so stiff. And, you know, it makes sense.
Well, there you go, Peter. I can get a group of people for you on one weekend.
Yeah. And also, you know, I feel like sometimes, you know, and we're kind of talking about health, we're talking about connections. Like when I look at the chart, the ruling planet of this chart that I have on the screen, which signifies this meeting, is Venus, and Venus is retrograde. So I feel Venus is in the sign of Cancer, according to the sidereal zodiac, and retrograde. And it's in this part of the sky that's called Ashlesha, which is about the spiritual energy, Kundalini energy. So immediately, you know, when I pick up here, I feel that it's important for all of us during this time period, during this Venus and Mercury and Saturn retrograde period, that we also nurture ourselves. Venus is in Cancer, and we figure out like the different ways to be able to strengthen ourselves, because there's an old saying that if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy. So, you know, we have to connect to that, cultivate that feminine side of ourselves, even if we are a woman, that we, or a man, you know, we need to connect to that kind of peaceful place of forgiveness within ourselves, or, you know, being able to, you know, rub oils on the heart, rubbing out our tensions, our problems, and, you know, strengthening our spiritual dimensions of self-love, I guess you could say. And so, you know, when I look at, and the last thing I want to mention is, I'm probably limited for time right here, but I want to say that, you know, the karmic taskmaster, the big chief in the sky, Saturn, is in this nakshatra that's called Shatabichak. Shatabichak's 100 healers, 100 different ways to heal things. Everybody that I've seen that is a healer, that does some type of healing work, or has a healing center or something, they have planets in Shatabichak, you know, whether it's the moon, whether it's the sun, whether it's, but now right now we have Saturn there. So Saturn in Shatabichak will, during this time period, we, you know, what one man's medicine may be another man's poisons, or there are maybe 100 different ways to heal ourselves. And this is what we're kind of connecting with, like what works best for ourselves. You know, everybody's so unique. And by, again, looking at the chart, I feel strongly to say with this Mercury retrograde that it's tweaking some people, making their nervous systems, throwing their life off, because if your nervous system is your intelligence, and if the intelligence is kind of going backwards right now, with Mercury retrograde, that we need to research, re-review, reconsider all the re's in life. You research, and if we could do this, we may want to research in these areas of connections with healing work, you know, in our own personal life to make us stronger.
Well, that's good. Well, what I'm going to do, Peter, is actually hand it over to you guys, because Steve is actually going through the Venus retrograde training. So this is actually a wonderful way to do it, Steve. You've got collaboration with Peter here.
Yeah.
Did you manifest?
Yeah. And I'm happy to, you know, I usually don't compare the Western, if you're looking at the sidereal zodiac or the tropical zodiac.
No, I know nothing about any of that. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I'm not an astrologer of any sort. Just a very basic amateur one. One thing I will say, though, it's interesting you brought up the shoulders. I saw a reel during the week, and an exercise you can do to strengthen your shoulders, especially if you spend a lot of time on a computer, is and stop that. Apparently you hold your hands, I'll go back a bit, you hold your hands back like that, and you keep them sort of at level, and you just 25 times backwards, just little pumps like that. Do that for 25 times, and then you put your hands with your, so they're like that, but just down, the same thing, 25 times back that way. And then the third way is arms, and then go backwards with your thumbs up like that. And apparently what that does, it strengthens and opens up you know, your shoulders and so forth. So yeah, it was just an interesting, you mentioned strengthening your shoulders, and the physio doing the reel said if you do that 3 times a day, you will be much more straighter, more open. And so yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, and also to strengthen the vagus nerve as well. I mean, there's all these exercises that I think are kind of related to the shoulders as well. What's the song? The head bone connected to the hand bone, the hand bone's connected to the arm bone, everything's connected, I think. Anyways, yeah, I want to quickly share with you that I've been looking everywhere. I just want, my last thing I want to say, and then I want to turn everything over to you. But I've been looking for a for years now, a bell, like, and I found this priest Balinese bell, and it's really cool because it has a bardra, which is a symbol of divine unity and strength, and it's like a weapon, the vardras of good. And also that each one of the on this bell has each of the planets too as well, the stone that represents each of the planets. And the bell's crafted from this really good, sometimes Zoom meetings don't pick up sounds like bells and guitars, I found out. But it's really, I just wanted to share this bell because sometimes having a bell to clear energy is a really good thing. I know that it was the very first part of my spiritual practice in my life 30 something years ago was doing feng shuiing my house. And I found that using bells to clear energy like that was stuck in the house, as corny as this may sound. But I realized that there was like some stuck energy in this one corner, whether it was past life or whatever it is. So I just got a bell and started ringing it, and I could feel it kind of releasing, or I felt it more peace, more emotional and psychological peace as well, which I find to be very interesting.
Do you want to give that a go now, Peter, for us to clear any energy that we've got at the moment? I mean, it may not come up like you said with Zoom, but yeah, that'd be good if you could do that. Cool, thank you. Yeah, and you're right, it didn't come out on Zoom, at least I didn't hear it anyway. It's interesting how obviously the frequency is really different, hey? So
yeah,
thank you for doing that. Peter, I think I'll need you to stop sharing so I can share.
Yeah,
your screen.
let me go ahead. Let me go, oh, sorry about that. Okay, let me
There
stop the share.
Yeah.
And I'll go ahead and I'll just stop my video as well.
Okay.
So I can let you add it and give you full authority.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Peter. It's always wonderful to tap into your wisdom. So can I just get a quick sound check and make sure everyone can see my screen? So can you just put that into the chat, please? If you can see my screen and you can hear me okay. Okay, Barbara's all good. Thanks, Barbara. Everyone else good. Thanks, Grace. Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, Judith. All right. So as I mentioned just before, my knowledge of the astrology and the stars is a very basic level. I'm the first to admit that. So I guess today I'm looking at marrying, I guess, the last couple of weeks that we have looked at in City Awakening with, Peter spoke 2 weeks ago and Grace has done a couple of sessions on the shadow. And I guess from my point of view, and it'll become clearer as I go through it, some of the things that come up for us in our human experience here and how we can deal with those better. So let's get started. I get my slides working, and we will do the heart-mind coherence. So as you know, there are 3 steps. So I'll just invite you to follow along. So the first thing is step number 1 is shifting our awareness. So I just invite you to get out of your thinking mind and into your feeling heart. And so I just invite you to gently touch your heart space. Close your eyes, gently touch your heart space, either with an open palm or fingers, whatever way is comfortable for you. And the reason that we do that is that our awareness always goes to the place on the body where we feel the touch. It draws our awareness from the busyness of our mind and into the feelingness of our heart. It gives a signal that I'm turning my attention inwards. So I just invite you, step number 1, gently close your eyes and gently touch your heart space. And step number 2 is to slow your breathing. So I invite you to breathe in through the nose for a count of 5, to hold for 5, and then we'll go out through the mouth for 5. We'll do that 3 times. So in through the nose for 5, hold, out through the mouth for 5. And again, in through the nose for 5, hold, out through the mouth. And again, in through the nose. Hold. And out through the mouth. And when we do this, we're sending a signal to our body that we're in a safe place, because the only time that we ever breathe like this is when we feel safe. So it awakens the healing chemistry, because our body can really only do one of two things at once. It can stress, be in flight and fight, or it can be in healing mode. And so slowing down like this gives the body permission to go into that healing mode. So once again, in through the nose for 5. Hold. And exhale. One more time, just from that place you feel the touch, to breathe in. Hold. And then release. That's step number 2, to slow our breathing. And step number 3 is to create a feeling. And so I just invite you, with your eyes closed, with you gently touching your heart space, to the best of your ability, to create a feeling of one or a combination of care, appreciation, gratitude, or compassion for anyone or anything in your life. And the researchers at the Heart Math Institute, they've found that these 4 key words, they trigger that coherence between our heart and our brain. And so, to the best of your ability, to feel the feeling of one or a combination of care, appreciation, gratitude, or compassion for anyone or anything in your life. And just to sit there gently, touching your heart space as you generate that feeling for a few moments. All right, when you are ready, just to open your eyes and come back into the room, as it were, and we will get started. This might be an older version, but who would like to kick us off by reading the prayer to our Father?
I'm happy to do that, Steve.
Thanks, Christine.
O thou from whom the breath of life comes, who fills all realms of sound, light, and vibration, may your light be experienced in my utmost holiest. Your heavenly domain approaches. Let your will come true in the universe, all that vibrates, just as on earth that is material and dense. Give us wisdom, understanding, and assistance for our daily need. Detach the fetters of fault that bind us, karma, as we let go of the guilt of others. Let us not be lost in superficial things like materialism and common temptations, but let us be free from all of those things that keep us from our true purpose. From you comes your working will, the lively strength to act, the song that beautifies all and renews itself from age to age. Amen. Sealed in trust, faith, and truth, and I confirm with my entire being.
Thank you, Christine. All right, as always, with any of these presentations, take what resonates and leave everything else behind. All right, so I just want to do a couple of things to set the scene for us today. I guess that this comes from Grace. The brief that we were talking about for the month is this Venus retrograde period, and Peter mentioned it a little bit before. And so initially, Grace has done a couple of sessions on this. Warren has done one, and Grace has done a couple of sessions on shadow work as well. And so, what is the finger of the transit of God? Past life loves, old patterns returning. And as she said there, the energy is very rare in that it only retrogrades every 18 months. And so hence the link today. But I also wanted to, and as I was preparing this, I was thinking about, I guess the link of it. And, a couple of weeks ago, Peter mentioned, I hope I've got this right from our discussion, that the Earth is going through the end of a 25,000 year shift. And we've got all of these symptoms, these flu-like symptoms, or a hangover kind of period that we're going through. And, that's playing out practically in our lives. And so with that as a backdrop, the old partner of fear, because we are emotional beings, as we know. How do we do that? How do we navigate fear, because it's such a strong emotion, as we already know? And I guess one of the things too that I want to say is that you know, maybe there's not a lot of new stuff that I'll share with you today, but perhaps it's more of a remembrance for you, and it might trigger something different in you that you may not have had before. Give me 30 seconds, 2 seconds. I've got to go and let Tilly out. Hang on. Oh, quick, out you go. Quick, go. Tilly, who should have been crossed over, but that Christmas is still hanging around. All right, so I love this saying that everything is imperfect and impermanent, and a reminder that a lot of our suffering comes about when we seek perfection and we seek permanence, and we become attached to those things. And so I just wanted to start by reminding you of that part of our human experience here. I love what the French writer has said. He said that everything that needs to be said has already been said, but since no one was listening, everything must be said again. And for me, when I hear Warren speak, or when I hear Peter speak, it actually activates something in me that goes, that's right, I've forgotten about that. How could I have forgotten about that? That was really important. And so there is, as human beings, I think as we navigate our ascension, if you like, on planet here, we do need constant reminders. We are so busy, we're bombarded with so many things, our minds, we lose parts of it. So the reactivation, I think is really, really important. However, it is a uniquely human thing. It's not something that is new. Even in the Bible, Ecclesiastes says there is nothing new under the sun. So today is a reactivation, a reawakening, a remembering of, and I think Peter mentioned in the introduction too, that thing. So yeah, and I guess what I'm ultimately aiming to do is to reawaken some things in you to help you see both the lady looking at you and the lady looking to your left as you see it. Because both of those pictures are there. The duality of both of those pictures are there, but are we focusing on one of them only? So today is very much about helping you see different sides of things, because there might be some stuff coming up, obviously with the retrograde, but also given that 25,000 year hangover with the flu-like symptoms. So 4 things I wanted to touch on today. Fear, this notion of fear, how we deal with that, the idea of happiness and what that really means, the idea of courage, and then the idea of action as we navigate what we do on the planet here in this particular time, the retrograde and the hangover from the 25,000 year cycle. All right, let's talk about fear. This came into my news feed just this week. We're starting to hear more and more of COVID coming back. I found this yesterday, again, came into the news feed, Hollywood demanding masks. There's masks for sale now in Arizona, buying supplies. So they're coming. And I heard someone told me yesterday that David Icke is also predicting, more COVID outbreaks and lockdowns and so forth. Now, the big hope, I think, if that is the case, the big hope that we all have is that, well, it can't get as bad as last time because people will stand up. And Christine and I were messaging this morning. She's saying that she hopes that it will be different and more people will stand up. But when you see people still wearing masks from last time, as Christine mentioned, and there are some people in Albany, it kind of doesn't hold, I don't hold out a lot of hope for that. So there is some more disruption coming, I believe. I hope I'm wrong. But if that's the case over the coming months, what are we going to be able to do about it? All right, so I wanted to begin that part of the discussion with a reminder, and this comes from David Hawkins. We've seen this many, many times, but where exactly this idea of fear sits on the Hawkins scale. And we know that it's a very low vibration. It keeps us in that contracted state. Tash has just said, I'm just reading the comment. she sees masks here, don't have much hope for humans. They are in deep fear. Yeah. And we can see how far down, Tash, as you said, the scale of consciousness fear is and how it keeps us in a contracted state. So how we can't avoid fear, we can't ignore fear. How can we better manage it in our lives, I guess, is what the big message from me today, because it's part of our human experience. It's one of our emotions. We can't cut that off. If we know about it, we've got a better chance of navigating it better. And I also love this from Hawkins. And again, this is not new. I have shared this with everyone before, but this is he in his book Letting Go, he summarizes the notion of the shadow and the human experience. He says, buried within all of us is what Jung called the shadow, or the collective unconscious, is everything that we most dislike about ourselves. The average human would rather project his shadow onto the world and condemn it and see it as evil, thinking that his problem is to battle the evil in the world. Everybody has these thoughts and fantasies. This is the key to it, I think. There is nothing unique about any of us when it comes to the way we symbolize emotions. Everybody secretly harbors the fear that they are dumb, ugly, unlovable, and a failure. And that whole notion of fear coming up, and it was really interesting. I think Peter expressed it when things have slowed down for him. And so he immediately went in, he was saying how he went into fear, but he didn't give in to that. He's saying, well, maybe it's just a time to slow down. Yet we all have that gee whiz, no one likes me anymore. Maybe no one liked me in the first place. What am I going to do when the masks come back? Blah, da, 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 da. And all of a sudden, our happy lives that we are quite attached to has become disrupted by fear. And I guess the key message in me showing this again is that often when we feel fear, it can feel very lonely and very unique and very, it's very visceral, it's very real. And it feels like you're the only human being in the world. And if you're in that lower vibrational state that feels like this, and you see someone smiling on social media or out to dinner or whatever it might be, and that just does that elevation kind of thing and makes the gap bigger. But the key thing is, as Hawkins says, everybody secretly harbors the fear that we're dumb, ugly, unlovable, and a failure. So, it sounds silly, but that gives me great comfort, because when I feel fear or any of those emotions, they're actually the same as anyone else. And it also gives me hope in that we are all connected as part of this human experience here. There's no separation, only when we choose to live in that fear state for periods of time. So I just wanted to start with that. The other part of that too, when we are in a fear state, gosh, us humans love drama. We wallow in drama, we watch drama, we feed on drama, we seek out drama. We say we don't, but we are so addicted to it. We get caught up in our own story, in our own crap, and the drama of our lives can be overwhelming. I showed the photos of the impending, the possible, the maybe COVID coming up, and that didn't feel very good. That felt very dramatic. And it was like, oh my God, how bad is it going to get this time? The drama of that, it makes it very, very easy for us to get caught in our monkey minds. And we all know, we've done this many, many times in this forum and others, about the drama triangle, how we run around the outside of that so much, caught up in the drama of our lives. And look at the word in the middle there, anxiety. Another word for anxiety is really a fear of the future. Oh, it's going to be really bad. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, how can I cope? Oh, what if this happens? Oh, what if that happens? Which is all just part of that fear emotion. And so, again, I raise this today to be aware over the coming months during this retrograde period, if we do get some of the stuff coming back to the masks and the mandates and all those sorts of things, to be really, really aware of the anxiety, of the fear, because knowing ourselves, we know that we get caught up in drama. And the interesting thing will be that how do we cope this time? You know, if I reflect on last time, if this happens, and I reflect on what happened last time, I got caught up in a lot of drama. I became really a real persecutor because I felt persecuted, but I became a real persecutor, you know, of others who had a different view to me. How am I going to navigate that next time? You know, and maybe it's not going to be a mask mandate or whatever it might be. Maybe it'll be something else. But how am I going to navigate that? Am I going to descend to those lower things that Hawkins talks about on his scale of consciousness, or am I going to choose a different reality? And like I said, I share that with you to get you to think, to prompt you to think about that in your life, as you know, these external factors actually impact on our lives and our thinking and our emotions. And I've been reading an interesting book. It's by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's called Big Magic, and she's the lady who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. I never read that, but for some reason I picked this up just a week or so ago, and I'm just starting to get into it. And she talks very much. The idea of big magic is that you unlock the magic within inside you to bring your creativity to the world. And just to slightly shift onto that about creativity and you doing you and bringing your magic into the world, my challenge to myself and to you is, what's stopping you from doing more of that? What's stopping you from helping more people? Is it fear? And this is, I guess, I'm going to read a long list to you. This comes exactly from Big Magic, from Elizabeth Gilbert, of the fears that people have. And as I read through the list, I'd like you to examine if you've had that thought over the last week, the last 6 months, the last few years, just to take a little bit of an inventory of your human existence and your human experience. Because the thing is that once we've got awareness, once we are awakened by something, we then have a chance to do something about it. If we continue on just oblivious and asleep, we've never got a chance or a hope of doing anything about it. So here we go. Look at Elizabeth Gilbert's list of reasons why we don't follow through with the creative energy that we've been gifted in this world. So she says, you're afraid you have no talent. You're afraid you'll be rejected or criticized or ridiculed or misunderstood, or worst of all, ignored. How many times has that happened in your life, in your mind? You're afraid there's no market for your creativity and therefore no point in pursuing it. You're afraid somebody else already did it better. You're afraid everybody else did it better. You're afraid somebody will steal your ideas, so it's safer to keep them hidden forever in the dark. You're afraid you won't be taken seriously. You're afraid your work isn't politically, emotionally, or artistically important enough to change anyone's life. You're afraid your dreams are embarrassing. You're afraid that someday you will look back on your creative endeavors as having been a giant waste of time, effort, and money. You're afraid you don't have the right kind of discipline. You're afraid you don't have the right kind of workspace or financial freedom or empty hours in which to focus on invention or exploration. You're afraid you don't have the right kind of training or degree. You're afraid you're too fat. She says, I don't know why or what this has to do with creativity exactly, but experience has taught me that most of us are afraid we're too fat. So let's put that on the anxiety list for good measure. You're afraid of being exposed as a hack or a fool or a dilettante or a narcissist. You're afraid of upsetting your family with what you may reveal. You're afraid of what your peers and co-workers will say if you express your personal truth out loud. You're afraid of unleashing your innermost demons, and you really don't want to encounter your innermost demons. You're afraid your best work is behind you. You're afraid you never had any best work to begin with. You're afraid you neglected your creativity for so long, you now can never get it back. You're afraid you're too old to start. You're afraid you're too young to start. You're afraid because nothing went well in your life once, so obviously nothing's ever going to go well again. You're afraid because nothing has ever gone well in your life, so why bother trying? You're afraid of being a one-hit wonder. You're afraid of being a no-hit wonder. And she says, it's really interesting. She says, listen, I don't have all day here, so I'm not going to keep listing fears. It's a bottomless list anyhow, and a depressing one. I'll just wrap up my summary this way. Scary, scary, scary. Everything is so goddamn scary. Now, if we add some lockdowns and things on that, it's pretty easy to see how quickly we can become blocked. I would just like your feedback, because I read through that list and I'm ticking off most of those things that I have thought that at some point. Can I just have a yes in the chat if that list was in any way relatable to you, and or you that triggered something in you? Can I just have a yes while I take a sip of water if you related to that list? Okay, Christine has said yes. Judith, yes. Fiona, yes. Barbara, yes, definitely. Grace, yes. Aidan, yes. Relatable. All right, thanks, guys. It wasn't just me, and there's one of my fears. Gee whiz, I stand out. But yeah, I found that really relatable, and the fact that all of us feels that also is comforting, in that it also means we can just go ahead and do it anyway. If everyone feels that, we can just go ahead and do what we want to do anyway. We can create what we want to create anyway. Because the fear is going to be there. We can't squash it. We can't eliminate it. It is going to be there. And I know these memes, these tiles, they kind of can be pithy sayings and a little bit of the, oh, come on, just think positive and everything's going to be great. But there's a couple here I want to share with you. Never underestimate yourself unless you want others to do the same. And again, out of fear, how often have you underestimated yourself and that's blocked you or stopped you? How often have you underestimated yourself and that has blocked you or stopped you? And I think I've shared this one before, but again, it's really, for me, it's really timely. A bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not on the branch, but on its wings. Always believe in yourself. Yeah, there's that sort of cheerleader thing. But yeah, again, I would challenge you, how often do you really trust in yourself? Do you trust in your wings? You know, I'm guessing that I don't often do that enough. And I'm guessing maybe you don't often do that enough as well. And so through this whole period of retrograde and whatever else is coming down the pipeline our way, I guess today is a call to arms, if you like, from me to have more trust in you, have more trust in the gifts you've got, have more trust in the creativity that you've got. Have more trust in the wings that you've got to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do, knowing that the fear is going to be there anyway. Because the fear is in our shadow, it comes up at certain times. All right, so here's a little challenge for you. And I'm saying this, I guess, as a real generalization, if the old paradigm of this world and that we're used to is fear, and fear is going to be a big weapon or a big part of our lives coming up, just given the likely circumstances coming our way, why can't we just change that paradigm? So instead of the attachment to fear, attachment to being in drama, the attachment to avoiding things because they are scary, why can't we create a new paradigm in our lives that says something like, everything works out for me? Because what I know to be true of our human experience is that thoughts create feelings. Feelings then create behaviors. Let me say that again. Thoughts create feelings. Feelings create behaviors. So I have a thought, oh, gee, it mightn't be safe to go over there. Oh, it's not safe to go over there, I'm scared. That's how that mind emotion thing works. So what if I just change that to, well, everything's going to work out for me? Now, I'm not talking about running down some unsafe street and just hoping that you're going to get out safely. I'm talking about more of those everyday things that we avoid, or even creative projects that we avoid out of fear. What if I'm scared or I'm fearful is changed that everything works out for me? I mean, how much higher up Hawkins' scale is that going to take us? Everything works out for me. Everything works out for me. Everything works out for me. I mean, Raymond Grace is a big one, as you all know, for, is that going to work? Well, I don't know. Try it and see if it does. Awareness is the first step to anything. Taking an action is the second part of it. Try it. See how you go. Do that for a week. Every time you feel a negative emotion coming up, why not replace it with the thought? Everything works out for me. Because you have a different thought, it's going to give you a different emotion. See how you go. All right, last thing. I love this quote from Abraham Lincoln. To believe in things you cannot see and touch is no belief at all. But to believe in the unseen is a triumph and a blessing. And I included that as a call to arms to have some more belief in you. You can't see your belief or faith. Why not have a triumph and a blessing by believing more in yourself? And again, thoughts become things, or thoughts generate an emotion. Why not have the faith that everything always works out for me, rather than, gee whiz, I'm scared, I'm angry? Interesting question. All right. This card comes from, I'll do a quick activation now around fear. This card comes from the Reverend Stephanie Redfeather, PhD, from the Empath Activation. This card is number 24 from the deck, which is the Atman Vision. And let me just quickly read out, and Peter might have an opinion on this as well. Atman is the Sanskrit word that means inner self or spirit or soul. In Hindu philosophy, Atman is the first principle, the true self of an individual beyond its identification with any natural phenomenon. It represents the essence of a person, the eternal self. And the guidance here is to take pressure off yourself. You can do this and it says you can do this and you have help. And then it says, from an elevated viewpoint, and relieved of the grip of anxiety, there's that word again, you will see clearly the divine machinations that are in process and how to move past your old patterns. And so here's what I would like you to do. So there's an activation that I will read out. It's a 3-verse poem. But as I'm reading that out, I'd invite you just to have a look at that code on the screen and breathe it into your third eye and listen to the words from the activation. So this is invoking the Atman Vision. And again, it's all about transmuting that notion of fear, that anxiety, into something that is more positive. So here we go, looking at the code, breathing it into your third eye. I summon my eternal self, transcending human ego self. Omniscient vision open to me. All paths and choice I ask to see. Separate me from my fear, so the way ahead I can see clear. A weighty choice now lays before me. Courage, trust, and faith are key. Souls are locked in vicious cycles. Free us from our epic battles. Show me how to mend with grace, so I can claim my sovereign space. Illuminate what's mine to do, and leave the rest in trust with you. I now feel clarity, confidence, surety. I stand strong in my own authority. Eternal grace is now descending. Karmic patterns are finally ending. My soul and spirit I won't forsake. I'm done with lifetimes of heartbreak. Through vision pure I am awake. I know what decision I must make. And maybe a simple pragmatic decision is to decide that you won't have that fear thought, or when you do have that fear thought, you will change it into something that serves you more. So I'll just leave that code on the screen just for a few more moments, just while that integrates. Right, and as that is activating, we'll keep moving ahead. All right, I want to talk next about number 2 from the 4 things, and that's this idea of happiness. And retrograde times of COVID, happiness is an interesting one because there's a lot of negativity out there. And I guess I want to take a step back out of those 2 energies for a moment and just talk about this idea of happiness and what my belief of what really makes people happy. And what I've come to realize is that achievement doesn't make people happy. As someone who has spent their life tied to the outcome of the achievement of something, 2 things happen. One, when you get it, you kind of feel empty because, oh, is that all it is? And number 2, if you miss it, you feel like a complete failure because you haven't achieved what you want. And it leads to that thing called destination addiction. And if you live your life like that, you actually get attached to things that are always in the future, attached to things that you can never actually achieve. And from my own experience, that causes a great deal of unhappiness because, gee, what if I don't achieve? Then I can never be happy. And it's a real vicious cycle. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about happiness and not how to be happy. That doesn't really resonate for me. But one of the things that I think is really important is this idea of progress, because my premise is that progress is actually what makes people happy. So creating something, moving from one state to another. And the reason that I think progress rather than stagnation is the thing that makes people happy is that we live in this heavy 3D world, right? And we need to see things. We need to see things before our eyes so our brain can go, yes, there's movement there, there's a shift there. You know, if your goal is to achieve $1 million in income, if you don't get that, you feel like a failure. But gee whiz, if your goal was to achieve $1 million a year in income and you achieve, I don't know, 800,000, that'd still be pretty cool. I mean, it mightn't be $1 million, but you've progressed from whatever you were to 800,000. That's good. And so this whole idea of this destination addiction versus progress, you've been able to progress and not stagnate, I think is really, really important and an interesting way of approaching things within our shadow, approaching fear. You know, maybe part of progress is just not giving into fears that may come up over the next couple of months. You know, and that is quite a triumph in itself. And so that whole notion, progress is what makes people happy rather than achievement. I'd really encourage you to reflect on how that might play out in your life. Because there is this, and again, I've taught this concept before, the 100th monkey theory or the 100th monkey effect. And basically, it's a phenomenon where a new behavior idea is spread rapidly through consciousness from one group to the rest of the species once a critical number is reached. It actually came from researchers observing some monkeys on 2 different islands in Japan. And apparently, the story goes is that one group of monkeys were washing, I think, potatoes before they ate them. And the monkeys across the islands didn't have any communication. But when a critical mass of the monkeys on one island started doing it, all of a sudden, the monkeys on the other side, on the other island rather, started washing potatoes. So it became the 100th monkey effect. And it says there down the bottom, this is why it's important to keep improving. There's that word improving rather than achieving yourself and spreading the truth, because it could be you that tips the scales. And the other thing too is that if we are improving, if we are moving forward, then, you know, we have that human trait of being able to see movements and measure movement, which is, and measuring that progress, seeing that progress is, again, my theory that that's what makes us happy as humans, or at least content as humans, or at least motivated as humans. Not achievement of things, but movement of things. And this is from I think the artist Maureen McHugh, I think her name is. She says, the life of any project goes like this. You start off with, you know, gosh, this is the best idea ever. Oh, gee, it's harder than I thought. Oh, no, this is going to really take some work. Oh, God, this sucks. I'm so bored with it. Then you have this dark night of the soul moment. And then you go, gee, it'll be good to finish because I can learn something for the next time. And then, oh, it's done and it sucks. It's horrible. That's not as bad as I thought. Now, anyone who's ever progressed anything can probably relate to that. Can I just have a yes if that is a little bit in the chat, a yes in the chat if you can relate to her interpretation of how we do something in a project. Now, maybe at the end of it, it's not just it sucks, but maybe it's, yeah, that's really good and I enjoyed it. But there's some version of that. We go through this dip. Anyone else relate to that? Okay. Okay, Christine, yes. Judith, yes. Anyone else? Thank you, Christine and Judith. There's always that dip. And I think the key thing, thanks, Barbara, yes. The key thing for me with that too is that when you have that dip, old patterns can reemerge, old fears can reemerge. Remember that list from Elizabeth Gilbert, where she had a list of fears. Oh, the same thing happened last time. I'll never be able to do it again. And so again, I share this with you as that notion that fears will come up when we are creating something, when we're progressing something. It's never going to be all, Skittles and roses, or whatever way you want to put that positivity kind of thing. There will be times when fears and difficulties come up. And the key thing, though, for me is that, humans are very much like trees. We're either growing or we're dying. Another word for growing is progressing. And so it's easier to stagnate if we get locked down again. It's easy if we're controlled by told we have to wear masks. It's easy for us to go into a shell, to not want to progress, to not want to create. And so again, in this period of the retrograde and the period that is coming up that we're facing, again, challenge to you. Are you going to stagnate or are you going to progress? All right, so number 3, courage. This is an interesting one. I love this from Walt Whitman, one of my favorite poets and thinkers. He said, we must risk delight. We must have the stubbornness to accept our gladness in the ruthless furnace of this world. I mean, that last phrase, my goodness, the words in that, the ruthless furnace of this world. Through the retrograde and through what may be coming up, there's going to be a bit of a furnace. And it's going to be really easy to give into our fear. More importantly, it's going to be really easy to not still experience the light, to not experience the gladness or the happiness or the gratitude, because the world is a ruthless furnace at many times. And certainly during tougher times, it can feel a hell of a lot hotter. So yeah, to live, to progress, he's saying that we've got to risk that. We've got to, even though there's all this bad stuff over here with fear, risk delight, risk having some gladness, risk having some gratitude. That is a way for us to progress. And the poet Jack Gilbert rather, in terms of moving forward, he was teaching at, I can't remember which university in the US, and one of his students, a young poet, approached him and said, can you give me some advice? I really want to be a professional poet. And he said, well, do you have the courage? Do you have the courage to bring forth this work? The treasures that are hidden inside you are hoping you say yes. And with any project, any progress, it's a really interesting question. Do you have the courage? Do you have the courage to bring forth the work? Because I am an absolute believer in this, that the intrinsic value of each of us, the treasure that is within each of us, that gift that is within each of us, do we bring it out enough? Do we have the courage to share it with the world enough? As he says there, as Gilbert says, it's hoping that you say yes. And again, courage is probably the opposite of fear. So those two are intimately linked. Right, food for thought, right? I want to read this to you as well. Again, comes from Gilbert's book. We always hear stories of, we love the rags to riches story. Every single movie follows that script. We love the normal person, X, Y, Z happened. They found the courage to overcome their fear and go and beat all these big odds, and they became this high, whatever it might be. A story, a part of this, it does take a little bit, but I do want to read it to you. Starts at page 9. She says, one of the coolest examples of creative living, and I've seen in recent years, for instance, came from my friend Susan, who took up figure skating when she was 40 years old. To be more precise, she actually already knew how to skate. She had competed in figure skating as a child and had always loved it. But she'd quit the sport during adolescence when it became clear that she didn't quite have enough talent to be a champion. Ah, lovely adolescence, when the talented are more officially shunted off to the herd, thus putting the total burden of society's creative dreams on their thin shoulders of a few select souls, while condemning everyone else to live a more commonplace, inspiration-free existence. What a system. For the next quarter of a century, my friend Susan did not skate. Why bother if you can't be the best? That's a really interesting point of view. Why bother if you can't be the best? Then she turned 40. She was listless. She was restless. She felt drab and heavy. She did a little soul searching, the way one does on the big birthday. She asked herself, when was the last time she'd felt truly light, joyous, and yes, creative in her own skin? And obviously I'm reading this to ask you the same thing. I'll read that sentence again. When was the last time you felt truly light, joyous, and yes, creative in your own skin? To her shock, she realized that it had been decades since she'd felt that way. In fact, the last time she'd experienced such feelings had been as a teenager, back when she was still figure skating. She was appalled to discover that she had denied herself this life-affirming pursuit for so long, and she was curious to see if she still loved it. So she followed her curiosity. She bought a pair of skates, found a rink, hired a coach. She ignored the voice within that told her she was being self-indulgent and preposterous to do this crazy thing. She tamped down her feelings of extreme self-consciousness at being the only middle-aged woman on the ice with all those tiny, feathery 9-year-old girls. She just did it, 3 mornings a week. Susan awoke before dawn, and in that groggy hour before her demanding day job began, she skated and skated and skated. And yes, she loved it as much as ever. She loved it even more than ever, perhaps, because now, as an adult, she finally had the perspective to appreciate the value of her own joy. Skating made her feel alive and ageless. She stopped feeling like she was nothing more than a consumer, nothing more than the sum of her daily obligations and duties. She was making something of herself, making something with herself. It was a revolution, a literal revolution, as she spun to life again on the ice. Revolution upon revolution upon revolution. Please note that my friend did not quit her job, did not sell her home, did not sever all her relationships and move to Toronto to study 70 hours a week with an exacting Olympic-level skating coach. And no, this story does not end with her winning any championship medals. It doesn't have to. In fact, this story does not end at all, because Susan is still figure skating several mornings a week, simply because skating is still the best way for her to unfold a certain beauty and transcendence within her life that she cannot seem to access in any other manner. And she would like to spend as much time possible in such a state of transcendence while she is still here on earth. That's all. That's what I call creative living, because creative living is where big magic will always abide. And I love that story because it gets back to fear, it gets back to courage, it gets back to happiness of progression. And so, again, my question to you, what is the figure skating big magic in your life you've either not started or have given up? And again, in this retrograde time when the you know what hits the fan coming up, what big magic can you still create? Maybe it's not figure skating. I know sure as hell it isn't for me. But each of us will have something that we connect to that for whatever reason we've stopped doing. Might be painting, playing an instrument, running, I don't know, whatever it is. What is the big magic that is buried perhaps back somewhere that you haven't had the courage to redo, that you could in the future? Interesting question, right? All right, last thing, actions. I love this quote from Viktor Frankl. He says, between stimulus and response is the freedom to choose. In other words, and as the hand stopping the falling dominoes, we all have this choice point in our lives where we can stop patterns. And I really believe that 3 actions that we can take can help that fear, or can help manage the fear better, can help us with the big magic. And I just want to really quickly take you through those. The first one is celebration. And I put this to you. When was the last time you really celebrated something in your life? I also believe that one of the codes to creation is to celebrate things before they actually come to pass. When you do that, you're actually future pacing what might happen with a really positive energy. So how well do you celebrate? How often do you celebrate? Now, celebration doesn't mean you've got to throw a party for 100 people. It might be a quiet dinner out. It might be a walk somewhere new. I don't know. Again, pick what works for you. But this concept of celebration, we can often forget in the busyness of our world, in being a consumer with all the deadlines. My goodness, we can often cut the joy out of our lives by not celebrating. And so celebration is one action you can take. The next one is, I quite like that photo, but the next one is the movement of our bodies. You know, we're not necessarily meant to be totally sedentary. When was the last time you got out and really sweated and really moved your body and moved any stuck energy? The gym, a run, a walk, a vigorous walk, a bike ride, whatever it might be, whatever works for you. Actions, the action of movement of our body. You know, even what we were talking about before about building your shoulders up that Peter was talking about. When did you get out last time? It might have been this morning, I don't know. Can you add more actions to your day, to your week, to help move that stuck energy, to help you find more progress, to help you overcome fear? You know, we are stuck in this body in this heavy 3D world. And so we also have to move within that 3D world. Food for thought. And the third and last one is playfulness. You know, we saw the Hawkins scale, right? Fear's right down the bottom. We're in a contracted state. Celebration, movement, and playfulness help move us up that scale. So your childlike playfulness, do you still have that? I'm not talking childishness, but childlike playfulness, childlike wonder. You know, even sharing a joke with someone can be a simple thing like that. I mean, rule number 6, don't take yourself or life too seriously. Fear stops us doing that. Fear can rob us of that. Heaviness, retrograde stuff can stop us being playful, stop us moving. And so in the interest of playfulness, I just want to share with you, just as we finish up, a couple of memes that have crossed my desk that I found quite amusing. They appeal to my particular twisted sense of humor. Maybe they'll appeal to yours. Here we go. People are so judgmental. I can tell just by looking at them. Love that. I like the irony of it. This one here. What's the difference between ignorance and apathy? Don't know. Don't care. Quite like that. This one here, the statistics definitely don't lie in this crazy world that we are living in at the moment. And perhaps my favorite one, the warning sign on this particular petrol Bowser. I have no words, and is the caption, and I don't think that needs any words. I mean, thank God for that label, because it stopped me doing one of those two things, right? But we've got to be able to laugh at ourselves and life and society. And so rule number 6 is important. All right. So your reflections, takeaway, a message, something that you remembered that you might have forgotten. What are some key things from today's session that you, whether it was from what Peter said, what I've spoken about from today, just I'd love to get a couple of things either on camera or in the chat. Then I'll just do another quick card activation at the end from a totally different source. So yeah, I'll just be quiet for about 30 seconds if you'd like to come on the mic or the camera. Love to hear your thoughts. Key takeaways, key messages that you, or actions that you will take as a result of today's session. Again, I'll be quiet for 30 seconds and come back to you.
Actually, Steve, what stuck out for me, I love that story about that lady who went ice skating.
Yeah.
And it's so relevant in regards to, you know, we are in the society that we need to achieve, we need to reach our goals, we need to reach our targets, because if we don't, we're not happy. We're not, we haven't hit the target, we haven't hit the mark. But what is it about? Can't we just do something out of enjoyment like that lady? So that's just to me a reminder of the simplicity of life. You're doing it because you're doing it out of love. You're not because she's not practicing because she's in a competition or going to the Olympics or prove to anyone that at the age of 40, you can do it, but she's doing it for herself.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. Thanks, Grace. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing I love most about that story, Grace, is that there was no happy ending. There was no movie made about her. You know, there was no fantasy. There was just someone doing something for the sake of love and the joy that it brought. And, you know, when we're in those states of joys for a longer period of time, that fear's got less of a chance of having a hold over us.
Exactly. I mean, I like the fact that she practices 3 times a week early in the mornings before she goes to work.
Yeah.
And again, how much we talk about knowing ourselves, and we talk about getting our self-worth. And she's actually really living it, practicing it. She's not showing it to anyone. She's not proving it to anyone. She's proving it to herself. And the other key thing in that story to me was she appreciated it at this time of her age, where she's at in comparison to when she was younger. Don't we do that? I mean, I appreciate things now, like, for example, pulling weeds and cleaning around the house. I actually really appreciate it at my age in comparison to when I was 15. So there is a process, there's a lesson, and there's such a inner contentment of actually doing it.
Yeah, very true, Grace.
Yeah,
very true.
Thank you very much for that story.
Yeah, pleasure. So a couple of other people, thanks, Grace, for that. Christine said the story of the skating lady resonates for me as well. Peter, thank you, love you. Thank you, Peter, same to you. Appreciate you saying that. Barbara has said, love, everything works out for me. We'll be pinning that on my walls. Love the skating lady story. Have given up and buried or love painting. Well, Barbara, there you go. Maybe now's the time to start. That's a call only you can make, though. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. Without having to go into a gallery, go to the Olympics, win the trophy. What do you love to do just for the sheer joy of doing it? It's a really interesting question. All right, thanks for those shares, everyone. Okay, I just wanted to finish, as I said, on another card activation. A lady that I've done some work with called Katia Shia and Rishahana. She does some channeling from Lord Sananda, and she has created this deck called Codes of Transition. And transition obviously is a change, right? And we're going through transitions at the moment. One of her, this code here, and again, I'll read out for you the lesson and the message, but I just invite you just again to breathe that code into your third eye. Let it move around the page or the screen for you. I'll just be quiet while you do that. Just breathe that into your third eye. Watch the code move. And as you keep doing that, I'll read out the meaning behind it. It's a code of faith, and she's channeled here that there is a greater gift. There's no greater gift rather than faith in our life, and it may not appear quite as we expect. Faith can come in many different forms, from the most traditional church God Christ to a little less traditional, such as the belief that our souls will never die and that we return to the heart of source to be held until we return once again. Having faith is important, as knowing there is something or someone guiding us brings an incredible strength. Know that we are never alone, that there will be many hands to hold us, to support us, to bring us comfort, understanding, and peace during our lifetime. Having faith that all is well. Remember Abraham Lincoln's quote as well. All is as it should be will bring us closer to Mother, Father, God, and what a divine comfort that truly is. And she goes on, this code is a sword of light, spinning and cutting through the energetic cords that are attached by others to our light bodies. Brought in with the violet flame from Saint Germain, this is a powerful tool for releasing those cords that are deeply attached to us, which both drain and contaminate our many energy bodies. By calling Saint Germain and placing the faith code over the heart chakra, the center for all the light bodies, we are able to initiate the process of removing these attached cords from others. This is the deep healing tool. The faith code of transition is for us and its true purpose. So attachments to others, yes, but what if we have an attachment to fear or an attachment to drama? So I just invite you, while you are looking at that code, breathing it into your third eye, to also energetically place it over, by your intention, over your heart chakra. And allow that code, as you breathe it into your third eye, as it's energetically placed by your intention over your heart chakra, to remove, to cut whatever attachments or ties at this time may be keeping you stuck. Is it attachments to others? Is it attachments to an emotional pattern? To fear, perhaps? Is it an emotional attachment to choosing fear over courage? Is it an emotional attachment to achievement over progress? Whatever is appropriate for you, just invite you to allow the code to do its work. Just to keep looking at it. Just invite you to take a slow, deep breath into your belly. Hold it. And then release. And one more time, slow, deep breath into the belly. And once more. And we started on the mind, and we'll finish on the mind with two things. Knowledge from Anton Chekhov, famous poet. Knowledge is of no value unless you put it into practice. So whatever reminders have been brought up today, I encourage you to really action them. It's only through decision and then action that alchemy happens, right? Everything that stays in our head doesn't change anything. But actually actioning something in the 3D world is where the alchemy happens, where the change takes place. And I love this quote from Charlie Chaplin. It's a little bit like, this too shall pass. Nothing is permanent in this wicked world, not even our troubles. So whatever is going on with the retrograde night right now, whatever is going to come our way towards the end of the year or whenever that might be with any more mandates, nothing is permanent in this wicked world, not even our troubles. And as Peter said 2 weeks ago, the reason it's not permanent is that we are coming to the end of a cycle, and what we are experiencing is those flu-like symptoms or the hangover from that big 25,000 year cycle that we're in the end of. Now, I hope I've got that right with the number of years, but I guess whether it's 24,000 or 15 or 30 or 50, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. It's the transition out of the cycle. That's the key thing. So, Grace, I might hand back to you. If anyone's got any last comments, otherwise we will wrap it up. So, Grace, back to you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you very much for the share. And Peter, did you want to come back and have a last word before we go our separate ways? And your office looks great, Steve.
Oh, thank you. I've actually just turned it around. I've turned my desk around. Yesterday, for some reason, I just went, I'm going to turn the desk around. I need a different perspective. Like, I need more space behind me to be able to look out the window.
And it does look like it's got more space, and also the lighting looks much better.
Yeah.
Perhaps since the last time. So
yeah.
No, good. Peter, how did it go, Peter? Any critique there?
Thank you, Steve. Wow, Steve. I felt really relaxed, really calm and peaceful, like when you were speaking. I felt like you were channeling something. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
One thing that I just wanted, I felt like I should mention that you talk about these time cycles, like we're kind of detoxing from the Kali Yuga, is what I said. And typically it's like a clock, a 24-hour period, you know, a 12,000 years ascension, 12,000 year descension cycle. But one of the things is that it's, from what I understand from speaking with like Vedic scholars and people that are knowledgeable of the yugas, as we start to move, even though we can think that, oh my God, what do you mean? So it's not going to be another 10,000 years until we get out of this mess. Well, the thing is, it's like time stretches. And it's almost like if you've ever played the game tetherball, where there's this ball attached to this rope and you hit it, and the idea is to try to get it around the pole, but the closer it gets towards the galactic center, or the closer it gets to the pole, the faster it actually goes. So I believe that, you know, the flip side of the coin to feel this nervous energy of things moving so fast is that that time stretches. And like the theory of relativity, time really doesn't necessarily mean that time verbatim, like we're gonna have to wait 1,000 years for things to change. Who knows? Maybe it could happen in our lifetime, you know, maybe even sooner. So time stretches like in this way. So it's hard to really kind of understand time, because, you know, time is just a number that's used to analyze like this moment. So anyways, thank you so much for your words, and thank you so much for having me. And I really appreciate your views and all the comments of the quotes and people that you use that shows this sincere intelligence. So other than that, happy Sunday here.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because I'm here in Bali, but we share the same time zone. Like everybody else that I know in the rest of the world, like they're all in, you know, Sydney or California or New York, or they're somewhere else, but it's like we're sharing the same time zone. So it's kind of like the symbology of that is like we're on the same page in a way.
Well, there
Like
is a few of us on the East Coast though. Like I am. I know Suzanne is. Judith. Yeah. Aiden's in the Central Time Zone, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve's 2 hours ahead of us, Peter.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Right. That's right. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. I forgot.
It's about half and half.
I take that back.
They're a half on the same page, and the rest of us aren't. There you
go. I guess that's like the Mercury retrograde. It's like, oh, my head. It's starting to get a headache now.
Yeah.
No. Have some sesame oil, Peter.
Yeah, I need to rub some oil on my head. It's like, oh, wow. Thank you.
It's great, and thank you for being here, Peter. And I think it's your turn next week or the week after, but I'll confirm it with you, and look forward to it. So, thanks, guys.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Judith.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And have a good rest of the Sunday. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Yeah.
Bye, Steve.
See you, Peter. Good
Bye,
to see you again.
Grace.
Bye.